Srimad Bhagavatam 5, 10, 22 and 23. 5, 10, 22. Sthalyagnitāpāt payasobhitapas tattapatastandulagarbharandhih dehendriyasvāshaya Tatsamsritihi purushasyanurodhat. Sthali, on the cooking pot. Agnitapat, because of the heat of fire. Payasaha, the milk put into the pot. Abhitapaha, becomes hot. Tattapataha, because of the milk's becoming hot. Tandula garbharandhihi, the center of the rice within the milk becomes cooked. Deha indriya asvashaya, the bodily senses. Sannikarshat, from having connections with. Tat samsritihi, the experience of fatigue and other miseries. Purushasya, of the soul. Anurodhat, from compliance due to being grossly attached to the body, senses and mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. King Rahugana continued, "My dear sir, you have said that designations like bodily fatness and thinness are not characteristics of the soul. That is incorrect, because designations like pain and pleasure are certainly felt by the soul. You may put a pot of milk and rice within fire, and the milk and rice are automatically heated one after the other. Similarly, due to bodily pains and pleasures, the senses, mind, and soul are affected. The soul cannot be completely detached from this conditioning. Please repeat. King Rahugana continued, "My dear sir, you have said that designations like bodily fatness and thinness are not characteristics of the soul. That is incorrect, because designations like pain and pleasure are certainly felt by the soul. You may put a pot of milk and rice within fire, and the milk and rice are automatically heated one after the other. Similarly, due to bodily pains and pleasures, the senses, mind, and soul are affected. The soul cannot be completely detached from this conditioning." Purport. Can you check the definition of the word placate? So after the purport, we will get there. Purport. This argument put forward by Maharaj Rahugana is correct from the practical point of view, but it arises from an attachment to the bodily conception. It can be said that a person sitting in his car is certainly different from his car. But if there is damage to the car, the owner of the car, being overly attached to the car, feels pain. Actually, the damage done to the car has nothing to do with the car's proprietor. But because the proprietor has identified himself with the interest of the car, he feels pleasure and pain connected with it. This conditional state can be avoided if attachment is withdrawn from the car. Then the proprietor would not feel pleasure or pain if the car is damaged or whatever. Similarly, the soul has nothing to do with the body and the senses, but due to ignorance, he identifies himself with the body and he feels pleasure and pain due to bodily pleasure and pain. What was the definition of placate? What are the synonyms of cook? Cook, C-O-O-K. So we'll also read 23. शास्ताभिगोप्ता नृपतिः प्रजानां यः किङ्करो वै न पिनष्टिपिष्टम् स्वधर्ममाराधनमच्युतस्य यदीह मानो विजहात्यघौघम्. Shasta, the governor, Abhigopta, a well-wisher of the citizens as a father is the well-wisher of his children. Nripatih, the king, Prajanam, of the citizens, Yah, one who, Kinkarah, order carrier, Vai, indeed, Na, not, Pinashti Pishtam, grinds what is already ground, Swadharmam, one's own occupational duty, Aradhanam, worshipping, Achyutasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yat, which, Ihamanah, performing, Vijahati, they are released from Agha Ogham, all kinds of sinful activity and faulty action. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject, or between the master and the servant, are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. Purport. This argument offered by Maharaj Rahugana is certainly very effective. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 124, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Tasmat kenapyupayena manah krishne niveshayet. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.132. Somehow or other, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Actually, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As soon as one is engaged in Maya's service, he cannot be happy. Our Krishna consciousness movement aims at engaging people in Lord Krishna's service. That will help them become freed from all material contamination and sinful activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.10. Vitaraga bhaya krodhaha. By becoming detached from material activities, we will be freed from fear and anger. By austerity, one becomes purified and eligible to return home back to Godhead. The duty of the king is to rule his citizens in such a way that they can become Krishna conscious. This would be very beneficial for everyone. Unfortunately, the king or president engages people in sense gratification instead of the Lord's service, and such activities are certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahugana tried to engage Jadabharat in carrying the palanquin, which is a form of sense gratification for the king. However, if one is engaged as a palanquin carrier in the Lord's service, that is certainly beneficial. In this godless civilization, if a president engages people somehow or other in devotional service or the awakening of Krishna consciousness, he renders the very best service to the citizens. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So, two very interesting and contrasting verses. So, sthalyagnitāpāt payasobhitāpasthattāpatastandulagarbharanthi dehendriyāsvāshayasannnikarshāt tatsamsritihi purushasyanurodhāt. What is the synonyms of cooking? Cook. Cook. C-O-O-K. Okay, wait. Okay, never mind. So, here a very nice example is given that if you put milk and rice in a pot and put it on fire, it will not that only the milk will cook or the rice will cook. When the milk is cooked, that will cook the rice also. And to cook the rice, we also put it in water. So, his argument is that if the soul and body are all together here, and if something happens to the body, it also affects the soul. Tapa means fire, and so tapa also means suffering. So, tapa means austerity. Tapa means by one's own voluntary desire, one undergoes inconvenience. And tapa is inconvenience imposed upon him by other factors, not by his own desire. So tapa therefore is imposed suffering, and tapa is voluntary suffering. So tapa, fire, so such in samsara dhavanala lead loka tranaya karunya ghana ghanatvam. So this material existence is compared to samsara davanala. Davanala means forest fire. So in the forest fire, everything burns and nobody actually sets it. It happens by the will of providence and the whole forest is burnt. It is explained that with the wind, the bamboos, the dry bamboos, they strike against each other and eventually the striking becomes so violent that flames catch, and then eventually the whole forest is burnt. And similarly, the soul is in this material world and he suffers just like in a forest fire. He doesn't want any inconvenience, but he is forced upon. Inconvenience is forced upon him. Now, the soul, Krishna also said in Bhagavad Gita, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam kledayantyapo, na soshayati marutaha. Akledyo asoshe vacha. What is that? Yeah. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. And अच्छेद्योयम अदाह्योयम अक्लेद्यो सोष्य वच नित्यः सर्वगतः स्थाणुरचलोयम sanatana. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. And I think avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanusochatim arhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So, here, there is a clear distinction on the body and the soul, that whatever you do to the body is not attached to the soul. The same effect the soul does not feel. Or he may at present feel it, but it doesn't happen to the soul. Cannot be cut, cannot be moistened. So then why do we feel pain? Why do we feel misery or happiness when it is given to the body? Because actually the body doesn't feel anything. The body does not feel pain. Because the body is a dead matter after all. You poke a dead body how much ever you want and cut it to pieces, it will never protest. It doesn't feel the pain. So it is in fact the presence of the soul which makes the pain felt. And in fact it's the soul which is feeling the pain. In what way? But then the soul, Jada says, does not feel the pain. So what is actually happening here? The soul is always eternal and the body is always dead. It is never alive. We think the body is alive now, but actually it's not alive. Just like the car is never alive even when the driver is driving and moving it, or the clothes are never alive although it is moving everywhere with the person who has worn it. But the cloth is always lifeless and the car is always lifeless. Similarly, the body of the soul is compared to clothes, vasamsi, and yantra, vehicle, in chapter 222 and 1861. So, with that, so it is dead. So the car, even when it gets into an accident, the car never feels the pain. When the cloth is torn, the cloth never feels the pain. It's the person who is wearing or who's driving the car, he feels the pain because he seemingly owns it and he has an insurance policy and so many things attached to it. So that's his attachment, not only within his mind, but it extends into legal documents and everything. Sorry. So even when a cloth is torn, suppose in public, then the person who's wearing the cloth feels the embarrassment, not the cloth. So when does this happen? As explained by Vishwambar Prabhu the other day on the public holiday, Wednesday class, on the previous verse. So it's actually the false ego which triggers these reactions. There is a false ego means a misidentification with matter. There is a very nice pictorial representation of this. The surface of the water, still lake, is like a mirror. The mountains or the trees on the other side are reflected in the water perfectly, without distortion. There is no mountain, there is no tree in the reflection or in the water. There is nothing. But it appears to be so. And when the water is moved, there appears to be distortion in the shape of the mountain or the trees. But nothing like that happens to the mountains or the trees. It happens only to the reflection. And the reflection actually does not exist. It is what we perceive from our vantage point. And depending on which vantage point you look at it, the reflection is different, right? So, and if you dive into the water, because it looks like, there's as high as the mountain is, such as deep is the reflection. But if you actually go into the water, there's nothing there. So where is the illusion? The illusion is on the surface and our perception of the surface, and of course the light or whatever. When we see the reflection only exists on the surface, and it doesn't even exist on the surface. It exists in our perception of only the surface of the water. We are not even seeing underneath the water, even 1 millimeter below the water. We're only seeing the surface, and our perception of it causes that reflection. Of course, light, you can say all these things, but if there is no observer, where is the reflection? So, for a dead body, there is no person within the body, and therefore there is no experience of pleasure or pain, and there's no reaction to that. So it's only from our vantage point that we feel. Like if another person is feeling the pain, from this vantage point, I don't feel anything. For me, whether a stone is poked on or whether the other person is poked, it doesn't matter to me. Because for me, there is no feeling of pain and pleasure. It's only from our vantage point, when we are poked, yes, then we are. So, the reflection, the surface, or our perception of the surface and our perception of the reflection is the representation of the false ego. When we look at the reflection and think, and when we look at the reflection for too long and forget to look at the reality on top of the surface of the water, then we become too much engrossed with thinking that the reflection is the reality. And when there's distortion of the water, we think there's distortion of reality and there's distortion of something. So because we're looking at the wrong place. So similarly, we are looking at this body thinking that this is me. This is called the bodily identification. And that interface of us misidentifying with this body causes the entire reaction of and our seemingly feeling the pain and pleasure of the body. A good example is, teenage boys, they like to play games on the computer. And I was playing as a teenager. And, there's all these shooting games. And when you are doing that shooting and you feel the pleasure when you kill someone with a gun, and when you get killed, there is the red light, the whole screen becomes red for a while, as you are hit. Then you will feel, you actually feel something physically even. Oh, I was hit. Then you just try to hide. Actually, nothing is happening to you. You're just sitting there doing nothing. But because I identify with the character in the game, I feel as if I'm hit. And I used to remember, I remember when my mother used to call us for lunch or something, we used to be playing away during summer holidays. And mother calls, hey, come have lunch. Then we were still playing, and then she will start shouting. So then we get irritated and don't disturb, as if we're doing something very important and great. And as if our life is on the line. But nothing is happening. It's just sitting, warming up the chair actually. So the soul is actually doing nothing. He's just being an observer and having these desires and thinking, that, this is right, that is wrong. And we form so many opinions based on this misidentification. So it's like the mother, she doesn't feel anything that is going on the screen. And there's actually nothing really going on because it's just a screen, it's just an illusion of temporarily it looks like as if something is going on, but nothing significant really is going on. But then again, the next verse, as Rahugana says, there is still significance to what we have to do in this world because we are given certain prescribed duties. If everything is just, false, or our relationships, or today you are the king, I'm the servant, and tomorrow maybe I be the king, you may be the servant. So all these relationships are fleeting and not really important. Okay, but while I'm here as a king, I should still do the duty, right? Because there is prescribed duty for the Kshatriyas or the Brahmanas or anyone. So what about that? Like how to reconcile these two things where at one point, in one sense, it doesn't matter, on the other sense, it does matter. So that's the question. It's a very valid question, in fact, very intelligent question of Rahugana. So this is nicely solved by Rupa Goswami's principle of Yukta Vairagya. So when Jadabharat explained that, I'm not the body, I'm not this, and all these things are actually not true. It's an illusion to identify with the body and all this fatness, thinness, and all these things, or any pain that is accrued to us, accrued to the body, it doesn't accrue to the soul. These things are good for realizing ourselves as distinct from the body, and these instructions are meant to inculcate vairagya, or to see the distinction between body and soul. That's the first level of self-realization, where we have to see the distinction between body and soul. And all our tapasya is meant for that, to augment our realization of that we are different from the body and engage in the activity of the soul. Now, the duty that comes with the body of a king, where he has to punish, because Rahugana was punishing, thinking him to be an ordinary citizen, and a king's duty is to punish. But as Prabhupada said in the purport, if the palanquin was carried for the Lord, it would have been different. It would also have been different if the palanquin was for the king, but the king is a representative of the God, of the Lord. Then we must serve such a, even a spiritual master. Prabhupada was carried on a palanquin, or he was driven in a Rolls Royce sometimes. No? So, and Prabhupada said, because reporters asked him, I heard that, I have seen that you have come in a fancy car. Is that true to your principles of renunciation that you have accepted? Aren't you supposed to be simple and, down to earth? Then Prabhupada said, I can come in any car or I can walk. I came on of course he did not say this, but he went on a ship to the America, after all. And that too in a cargo ship, not a passenger cruise liner where, it's all full of, all these 5-star luxuries. No, he wasn't in a freighter. And it was a tiny, puny freighter, 10,000 tonner ship on a sea that's nothing. So, so he is ready. In fact, in another place, he said, we can live under the tree. We don't need an opulent temple. We don't need. But why are we then building? Why are we taking so much? Because you may argue, even this cities or the civilization, this countries, this building, whatever is not permanent, why should we spend so much land or money on land or building so much? These arguments may be made, right? Because we may criticize the material world for these very same things, and then we may also do the same thing. So the answer is that as long as we have this body and the facilities that come with it, we have to use them. First thing is to understand that nothing belongs to us. But the second thing to understand is that everything belongs to Krishna. So in the service of Krishna, the position of a king, there is a duty. So there is a word in phrase in Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, where a devotee is described as Sarvarambha Parityagi. He does not make any plans. Arambha means the beginning. So he does not begin anything. That means a real devotee does not make his own plans. Usually when people come to God, Krishna, or sometimes even the other devatas, they have a plan in their mind. And they come here asking the Lord to bless their plan so that it can be smoothly performed. But they don't care to understand whether the Lord is actually happy with my plan or not. Some people may start a restaurant, for example, where they serve all things, eggs, meat and everything, and they may come to the Lord and ask for blessing. Why should the Lord bless? You're killing animals, you're killing everything. Why should the Lord bless? What blessing you want? So they do not know even what to ask when they come to the temple. They do some puja, archana, something they will do, and ask the Lord. We should ask the Lord, what does He want us to do? What should I do? And take the Lord's plan and execute it. This is called prescribed duty. A duty which is not created by me or from any material agent, but prescribed by the Lord, by the Acharya, who acts on behalf of the Lord. That is called prescribed duty. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, Bharata Bhumita Manusya Janma Hoile Jar Janma Sarthak Kare Karo Paropakar. Or even simpler, Jare Dekha Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh. So Amar Agnya. So that is his Agnya. Whoever you see, whoever you meet, talk to them about Krishna. Preach. So this is order, prescribed order. So we are not. So to execute that plan, we may take up many projects. We may start many initiatives. But that's not our initiative originally. It's Krishna's initiative and we are just executing it. So we are Sarvarambha Parityagi still. Even though we may have so many plans of doing this and that, like now we have Ram Navami coming up, Rath Yatra coming up, Narasimha Chaturdashi, so many things, festivals, and we have sometimes some book distribution festivals, some fairs where we go, and every day there is going on. So we do so many. In fact, the running of the temple itself is a lot of planning is involved and action is involved. So all these things are done, but on behalf of the Lord. The other day, I think Nimanita Prabhu was reading out from one of the articles of Back to Godhead magazine of Prabhupada, early days, I think 40s, in the 1940s. So there, that very important phrase is, the devotee always performs everything for and on behalf of Krishna. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm doing it for Krishna. No, are you doing it on behalf of Krishna? And then first behalf of Krishna and then for Krishna. So then it is Sarvarambha Parityagi. So Rahugana's 2 points, contrasting points, have their complete harmony in this principle of Yukta Vairagya. We have to be Vairagi and Yukta at the same time. Yukta means to be connected. Vairagya means to be detached. So we have to be detached from the world and at the same time we have to be also engaging with the world. Both things should be there. So that is Yukta Vairagya. So we have to be Vairagya in the sense of using everything for our sense gratification. That should be Vairagya in that domain, in that meaning. But the same things, having well understood that Ishavassamidam Sarvam, everything belongs to the Lord. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Krishna says, I am the owner of everything. So when there is the ownership of the Lord, everything belongs to Him, then everything is meant for His satisfaction. Even my position, although temporary, Rahugana's position, although temporary as a king, and it has nothing to do with the soul, with him, but it has something to do with the Lord. Because Varnashram system is set up by the Lord. And in that Varnashram system, everybody has their duties. And because this Rahugana was in a particular position in the Varnashram system, he was duty bound to behave in a certain way. And when he does it, knowing well for and on behalf of Krishna, then that is perfect. Then what happens is, although my position as a king or a brahmana or a brahmachari or vanaprastha, all these things, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Naham, what is that? Naham vipro na chanarapatir napi vaishyo na shudro naham varne na chagrihapatir no vanastho yatirva kintu prodyan nikhila paramananda purnamritabdher gopi bhartu padakamalayor dāsa dāsa. So what did he say? I'm not a brahmana, I'm not a kshatriya, I'm not a vaishya or a shudra, nor a brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha or sannyasi. I'm none of these. I identify myself. Nowadays, people like to say this. I identify myself as a woman. I identify myself. That's not. Yeah. So that is actually stupidity. But here he says, I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. So this is the identity. This is our real identity. That we are none of these varnashram designations, right? But when the designation is, but we're still engaged in the society. We are still having brahmachari, vanaprastha, grahastha, sannyasi, all these things. So if we are a Krishna consciousness movement and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction is this, and why are we having all these things? Because these are meant for Krishna's service. This is called Daiva Varnashram, where, yes, I'm not this, but now that I'm given this responsibility, it is a seva. I have to do this for Krishna. I have to do my duty. And what happens, even though it is temporary, because we can't stay eternally as in this body. So whether we are brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, we cannot stay eternally in that position. So while we are here, whatever our action is, if it is dovetailed in Krishna's service, the return is eternal. This is, Prabhupada says, the best use of a bad bargain. We asked for this, we bargained for this body. Because Krishna actually did not want to give us this. Krishna wants us to enjoy in the Vaikuntha. But we asked for it. We fought for it. Foolishly we fought for it. And we came away, and so now we have this body. Now if we understand that Bhagavad, I'm not the body. So what should I do while I'm in this body then? Ignore and do what? I should do something, right? Because the soul is, what is that, 3-5? Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishthatya karma krit. Karyam hi avashah karma. Sarvah prakriti jair gunai. What is that? We cannot live without any action, even for a moment. So the soul has to do something. So until I give up this body, and even after giving up this body, there's no assurance. In fact, we are assured that we will get another body. If I don't perfect myself, the soul, if it is not perfect, then we will just, I'm not the body, so I'm not going to eat. I have to eat. So this is where Yukta Vairagya is perfect. Of course, there is a stage like the Goswamis where Nidra, Hara, Vihara, Kadi, Vichito. They have conquered over all these demands of the body. Even then, they take something because the body has to be maintained. The soul, is doing its activity, but the body has to still be maintained. Prabhupada said the perfection is to come to the point of nil. But especially for us, as we are doing sadhana, we are nowhere there. So how to go from 0 to 100%? What is the 1 to 99? How does it look like? So that ramp of advancement, because it's a ramp, it's not like vertical, overnight from 0 to 100% I have come. No. The ramp may be very long, spanning many lifetimes. No, hundreds of lifetimes. Jada Bharat, Bharat Maharaj took 3 lifetimes. Imagine. So, but of course, the determination should be there within this one lifetime. But anyway, there's a ramp. So in that ramp, while we are neither at 0 nor at 100, how does that look like? So that's where we know that we are not the body, but we have to eat still to maintain the body, to engage it in Krishna's service, and therefore we eat. What do we eat? Then Krishna Prasadam. So in this way, it is the activity is purified. It is, we are eating and at the same time we are detached, in the sense we are not eating not food that is not prasadam. So it is offered first and then we eat. So everything we do, our even of our position, like this Rahugana was a king, he has to rule according to dictations of Varnashram Dharma. And as long as he does that, knowing well that this is what he has to do, and that is perfect. And in fact, Krishna says, Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat svanushkhitat swadharme nidhanam shreyah paradharmo bhayavahah. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily. Who prescribes? The doctor prescribes. So here Krishna prescribes. So it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Now, what can be a bigger danger, bodily speaking, than death? So, Krishna is saying something interesting, that destruction, and that means even death, in the course of performing one's own duty is better than performing another's duty, because following another's path is dangerous. So, he is forbidding us to from doing others' duty. But then he's saying destruction, death is all right. So death is not the danger. This is a bigger danger than death. That means not following the duty is a bigger danger than death. Death in the course of performing duty is still fine. Dying while performing a duty is actually glorious. Prabhupada went to America because Guru's order was to preach. He said, even if I die, let me, he left Vrindavan at that age. So even if I die, let me die executing the order of my spiritual master. That will be perfection. So destruction in the course of one's duty is better than not performing the duty. And he said even this, 1847, very similar verse. Shreyan swadharmo vigunah paradharmat svanushkhitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvan apnoti kilbisham. This is what Rahugana is saying. It is better to engage in one's own occupation even though one may perform it imperfectly than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So even if the king punishes someone, when the king punishes a murderer, for example, you see, this is the difference between prescribed duties and not performing them. Now, if a person performs a murder, he murders someone. Now, the karma, because he has killed someone, he has to be killed. He has to be killed for his. If the state does not do it, if the judiciary system does not do it, then next life he will have to be murdered. And people ask, oh, he has done nothing, why was he murdered so brutally? Well, you do not know what he did in the previous life. Karma. So, but the interesting thing is, the next life when he gets murdered by someone else, that someone else gets the karma of murdering him. Although he was supposed to be murdered because of his past karma, the one who performs the murder of him gets the reaction of murdering him. He has to be murdered. He has to be killed next. So it's a chain. How does it end? It doesn't end. But when the king orders that this person has committed murder, hang him to death, the king will never get the reaction. Although he has ordered the killing of that person, and the person under the order of the state kills him, hangs him, he never gets the sin of committing the crime, both the king and the person who has executed him, because he's doing a prescribed duty. This is perfect. And it is good for even the person who murdered, because he's paying for his life in this very life. So next life, when he takes birth, he does not have that baggage of murdering someone, that karma of murdering someone. So he starts afresh. It's good for him, it's good for the state, and it's good for the king, because he has done his own job. And in the state also, no one will dare to commit such things again, because publicly, he's murdered. So this is good for everyone. So this is the difference between performing duty versus letting karma play out and not performing the duty. If a person murders someone and the government does not punish, the government, as you know, Prithu Maharaj said, 1/6 of the karma of the citizens goes to the government also. So, whatever he has done, 1/6 of it goes to the ruler. Where is that? Shashtham Amsam. 4:20-14. Shreya prajapalanam rajnyo yesam paraye sukritat shashtham amsam hartanyatha hrita punyah prajanam arakshita karaharoghamatti. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by citizens, and in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. What is the other verse? Similar thing? 21 somewhere, right? Another verse is there, similar, where he's punished. 2 times it comes. 4:21 somewhere. So this is the thing. And let's see, what is this protection? Protection means, oh, have a strong police so that everybody is... Praja means everybody who's born. Protection of even the animals. Protection of not only the life of animals or human beings, but also protection of him from falling down to hell. That protection, what happened to that? Now today we have a government, Singapore, we think very safe. Certainly safe for humans, not for the animals. Because people are eating meat. And not only the animals unsafe, even the humans are unsafe because they're allowed to eat meat unrestrictedly. They are suffering. They're going to suffer. Because the amount of sin that is accumulating, they will have to suffer. So actually the government is not protecting. Whether in Singapore or any other country, where they do not have laws in regards to religion, religious laws. If the judiciary is based on not dharma given by the Vedic scriptures, then it is an imperfect form of government. And not only the citizens will suffer, the ruler also will suffer. So if protection means protection from all angles, not only bodily harm. What about karma? What about the soul's future? So, this 232 Bhagavad Gita purport. You see, in the Parashar Smriti, it's actually 1.61. Here is not there. Interesting. Parashar Smriti, the religious codes made by Parashar, the great sage and father of Vyasadeva, it is said, Kshatriyo hi praja rakshan, shastrapani hi pradandayan, nirjitya parasainyadi kshitim dharmena palayet. The Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens from all kinds of difficulties. And for that reason, he has to apply violence in suitable cases for law and order. And this violence is not only on the battlefield, but also internally in the matter of execution of criminals. This violence has to be applied. Therefore, he has to conquer the soldiers of inimical kings, and thus, with religious principles, he should rule over the world. 1.61. So nowadays, human rights, you cannot kill, death penalty is too much, you should not give capital punishment. No. So it has to be done when it has to be done. And then there is a nice explanation. 429:18:1. Here, Prachina barhi rajarshi praja sargabhirakshane adishya putran agamat tapase kapilashramam praja sargabhirakshane. Okay. In the presence of his ministers, the saintly king Prachina barhi left orders for his sons to protect the citizens. He then left home and went off to undergo austerities in a holy place known as Kapilashram. The word Praja Sarga is very important in this verse. When the saintly king Prachina barhi was induced by the great sage Narada to leave home and take to the devotional service of the Lord, his sons had not yet returned from their austerities in the water. However, he did not wait for their return, but simply left messages to the effect that his sons were to protect the mass of citizens. According to Veera Raghavacharya, such protection means organizing the citizens into the specific divisions of the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. This is the Prajabhirakshana, means this, not just having a good, strong judicial system and a police system. That's not enough. Means to organize the citizens into specific varnas and ashramas. People say, oh, introducing caste system is protection, they will say. Well, the abuse of caste system does not represent the caste system. Cataract does not represent the eye. The function of the eye, which is vision, when there is cataract, it is not that the eye should be removed. Oh, now you have no more cataract. But then there's no more eye. So the eye should be there, but the cataract should be removed. Similarly, the abuse of the varnashram system should be abolished, but not the varnashram system itself, because that was given by the Lord and it cannot be removed even if you want to. Because the intellectuals, the administrators, the mercantile and the laborer community will eternally exist no matter what labels you put on them. Nowadays they say white collar jobs, blue collar jobs, PMET, and what all kind of words. Same thing here. I mean, it's just, and priestly class or intellectuals, philosophers, scientists. Well, it's the same. You are giving different name for the same thing. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. But you are now not having this religious codes to govern these varnas, but then doing it whimsically. But the varnas you cannot erase because it is done by the Lord. Just removing the nomenclature does not remove anything. There's like this transgender movement. They say, oh, now I feel I'm a woman, so I'm a woman. Just saying that you're a woman and attaching some pronouns, you don't become a woman. Okay? Because it is said that even if your bones are dug up 2000 years later, if they cannot tell anything about you, one thing they can tell about you is a man or a woman. That's the only thing they can easily tell. Why? Because the bodily structure of the bones, man and woman, is different. Women have a wider pelvis and all these things because they have to carry the child. You cannot erase that. If anything, they can ever tell about this person of the 2000 years old bones, whether it was a man or a woman. So even until then, you cannot change it. Forget about now. So the bodily way, you cannot change it. But of course, as spirit soul, we are always neither male nor female materially. So, but while we are having these bodies, we have to use everything in our wherewithal in the service of the Lord. Everything in our capacity, everything at our command should be engaged in Krishna's service. And how to do it is also not whimsical, it is structured. And that is the Varnashram system. Because just the intention of using everything in the Krishna's service is not enough, but there has to be directions on how to use everything in Krishna's service. That is given by the spiritual master and the Varnashram system, so there's structure to it. So according to Veera Raghavacharya, such protection means organizing the citizens into specific divisions of the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. It was the responsibility of the royal order to see the regulatory principles of the 4 varnas, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the ashramas, namely Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. It is very difficult to rule citizens in a kingdom without organizing this Varnashram dharma. To rule the mass of citizens in a state and keep them in a complete progressive order is not possible simply by passing laws every year in a legislative assembly. The Varnashram dharma is essential in a good government. So one class of men, the Brahmanas, must be intelligent and Brahmanically qualified. So we are talking about a qualified Varnashram system, not a birth-based, defunct, useless for all practical purposes Varnashram system, which exists in name and not in reality. So, qualified Varnas, that means anybody can become a Brahmana, anybody can become Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. But now there is an inordinate effort to make everybody into Shudras and keeping the posts of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas occupied by completely fifth-rate people, degenerates. So, one class of men, the Brahmanas, must be intelligent and Brahmanically qualified. Another class must be trained in administrative work, Kshatriya. Another in mercantile business, Vaishya. And another simply in labor, Shudra. These 4 classes of men are already there. According to nature, Not that we are discriminating, oh, how can you say he's born like that? He has those qualities. What can you do? But it is not to be condemned. What to speak of Shudras? We are trying to engage plants and animals in Krishna's service. If some wood is used to, do the altar for the Lord, that tree is benefiting. Here, this wood is done for Vyasas and Bhagavatam is being read from this seat. That tree will benefit. The fruits, flowers, so many products of the trees. And animals are used in different ways, whether dead or alive. They are being used. And all such souls who are in those bodies get benefited. So what to speak of Shudras? Even animals we are wanting to, engage them. Let alone if there is curd, milk made into curd, the bacteria which helped form the curd, and if the curd was offered to Krishna, bacteria also will benefit. You think at any point if we are doing kirtan and trees nearby, anybody, ants or insects, they are benefiting. So we are not discriminating against Shudras, they should be condemned. No, we invite everyone. We invite everyone to engage in Krishna's service according to your anusrutas svabhava. So anyway, you see, but this is these four classes of men are already there according to nature, but it is the government's duty to see that all four of these classes follow the principles of their varnas methodically. This is called abhirakshana or protection. He did not even talk about waging a war, fighting with enemy kings when they're attacking. Protection is not an event when a war is happening. No, protection all the time. Even when there's no war, has to be spiritual protection of the citizens. So spiritual and material protection is to be given by the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. And the Vaishyas, when they contribute to the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas in the form of charity and taxes, they are not seen as the providers for the society, and then the Brahmanas are the beggars, leeches in the society, just living off of the charity of these wealthy wage earners or mercantile club. In fact, the other way around. The benefit that the Brahmanas give to the Vaishyas far outweighs the benefit that the Vaishyas give to the Brahmanas. So in that way, they are not leeches, they are not beggars, they are not just, mushrooms living off of a parasite. They are not parasites. So, parasite, mosquito takes your blood and does not contribute anything, if at all, malaria or dengue. So, parasite. But if the Brahmana sucks the blood of the Vaishya in the form of charity, accepting charity, but gives him in return, valuable spiritual advancement in the form of education and culture, building of temples, or these things, which requires, of course, the cooperation of Kshatriya as well, then that is perfect. He is giving much more in return than money can give. So always our giving should be the thing. We should give. What is that? Brahmana 6 activities. Dana and pratigraha. Pratigraha means accepting donations. But then dana, he should give, but not exactly in the form of money. He should transform it into something much more valuable. Print books and distribute. And make it into prasadam, distribute. And temple, and then get people to come. So all these things are the proper transformations of these. Like, we are not after money, but we will be after money for Krishna. Why not? Hanuman was not after women, he was a brahmachari, but he went after looking for Sita, the most beautiful woman. Not for himself, but for Ram. So this is the harmonious contrast that exists in devotional service in Yukta Vairagya. It's a beautiful system where Vairagya and Yukta because it answers to both levels of advancement, which is the first one is to distinguish between body and soul. The next thing is to, okay, if you're not related with the body, what are we related to? Krishna. And not only me, everything is related to Krishna. So everything needs to be engaged in his service. So both these things are very nicely covered in these two verses. And Rahugana's point of argument of when he said that the rice also cooks with the, with milk when kheer is done, or even with water. So well, that is again, as we've explained, that is the false ego. False ego which makes us attached to the reaction. And that example of the burning house, you know the story of the burning house. No? So this man, he had a big mansion, and then he, again, I always forget the full detail of the story. So he was staying in another place, I think it's another home or something. But then he had 3 sons, all grown up, and he's an elderly man. And he hears the news that his house, the other house, is on fire. He becomes totally anxious. He becomes, oh wow, what a loss, everything is gone. But then one son says, no, it is already, actually first son says, I have sold the property to that another buyer. Oh, he's happy. Then he hears, there is, but the process is not done, and the house is on fire. Then he becomes again anxious. But then the third son tells, no, that owner said, I will pay the money for that, at least the land and everything. You will not incur any loss. You will, I will pay for it, no matter what. And he was happy again. So his fluctuating feelings, the event is the same. The house was burning. How much he's attached to it and how much was he detached, that his feelings are fluctuating. So it's not that the event itself is the cause, but our attachment to the event. So to highlight that point, that story is there. So Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, they were tortured, but because they were not in the bodily concept of life, they did not feel it. And as much as we are out of the bodily concept, that much we will feel free from material pangs. So how to come out of bodily concept? I'm still in the body and I'm not there yet. This is why we have to engage in service. Then we will be absorbed in the service and be conscious that I and everything I'm using belongs to Krishna. My time itself belongs to Krishna. Kalosmi, Lokakshaya Krit. Krishna says I am time. So respecting time means respecting Krishna, because it is he who has given it. So in that way, if we use everything in Krishna's service, then I am out of this bodily system. So bodily feelings. So any questions or comments on this topic? Any questions? No, then we'll stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanand.